Fentanyl. Fentanyl is what you get when you give heroin the ability to turn Super Saiyan. That's because this stuff is 50 times stronger than heroin and is at most 100 times more powerful than morphine, making it one of the most potent drugs. Fentanyl works by binding with the pain relief and breathing control centers of the brain. When used right, it is supposedly beneficial for pain management, especially for cancer patients and people recovering from extremely painful surgeries. But in higher doses, it slows down or stops your breathing. A tiny extra dose of fentanyl can change it from being a therapeutic medicine to a killer drug. Some people die from this drug when they're exposed to it accidentally, especially if it's mixed with cocaine or heroin without their knowledge. Fentanyl can be absorbed through the skin or inhaled, meaning that merely touching or being close enough to breathe fentanyl can already be fatal. It's also just as dangerous for police officers when they're raiding drug dens and accidentally come into contact with this stuff, especially now that fentanyl is becoming more common on the streets. You'd better be careful out there, or else the Grim Reaper might be your next close encounter. Crocodile. Desomorphine. If you've ever heard of a drug that's named after the Russian word for crocodile, it's best that you stay away from it. Desomorphine, also called crocodile, is like when morphine went to the gym and turned into this nasty drug that's 10 times stronger. Unlike other opioids, crocodile isn't even that hard to get. Some people make this stuff by buying over-the-counter codeine and making it with household items like paint thinner and gasoline. People using it were like, hey, let's mix a drug with gasoline and inject it into our body. What could possibly go wrong? And when injected into your body, it gives you a short but intense high that's similar to heroin's effects, but much more potent because of the aftermath. Well, you should know that the reason why the Russians named this drug after a man-eating reptile is that it causes severe damage to your skin, making it look scaly and green. The chemicals in this drug are so corrosive that they eat through your flesh and skin, causing you to rot from the inside. In the most extreme cases, your bones can get exposed, forcing doctors to have no choice but to chop off the damaged body parts. If you're not afraid of losing your limbs, then you probably need to know that crocodile, due to its short-term high, requires you to dose more frequently to avoid withdrawal. Basically, you're trapped in a cycle until the drug eats all your flesh and leaves you nothing but a walking skeleton. At this point, you're probably already thinking about taking it off your bucket list of drugs. Synthetic cannabinoids. Spice. Synthetic cannabinoids aren't the type of seasoning you want to use to add some spice to your lunch. Also known as spice, fake weed, or K2, this stuff likes to make a claim that it's just like marijuana. However, it's actually different from weed. Spice is just plant material sprayed with human-made chemicals. It's sold as a legal alternative to marijuana and is often smoked or used in e-cigarettes and other devices. However, this is where you'd probably choose the organic stuff over this synthetic drug. The chemicals used in spice are often changed because if one chemical becomes illegal, spice producers simply say, well, let's just change the formula. This makes its side effects unpredictable because different chemicals are added every time. People who smoke too much spice experience rapid heart rate, vomiting, increased aggression, and depressive thoughts. Some people also die from organ failure because of this dangerous drug. Now, the chemicals in spice tend to be more potent than the addictive substance found in marijuana, which can lead to intense and unpredictable highs that can vary in terms of potency. You'd probably end up in the emergency room if you can't handle the spiciness of this drug. So if you had a choice between organic marijuana and the synthetic version, maybe you should just stick to the real one. But hey, we are not recommending either of them. Rohypnol, flunitrazepam. Let's say that you're a drug called Rohypnol, made to help people with insomnia get a good night's sleep. However, you quickly discover that people are willing to use you in different ways because of your potent effects. Also known as the date grape drug because people use it to knock their dates out cold, this drug gets secretly spiked into cocktails at a bar. So if you're out on a date, you wouldn't even know you're already drinking a margarita full of Rohypnol. You might think you're out on a date with a nice guy, but he just wants to get into your pants the easiest way possible. The next time you're conscious, you're already butt naked in a motel. Rohypnol, however, can be just as dangerous in medical settings. As a sedative, it is a potent drug that can be much more dangerous when mixed with alcohol and other depressants. This can lead to severe breathing problems, coma, or death. This is why Rohypnol is controlled and banned in many countries, including the US. Flakka. You'd know that a drug is dangerous when it's also called the zombie drug on the streets. Of course, you're not going to turn into a mindless, flesh-eating monster after using this drug, but its effects are pretty darn close. One of Flakka's most common effects is changing your brain's chemistry and altering your mood and behavior. A lot of people tend to become more aggressive and are easily agitated after using this drug. This is why it's called the zombie drug. Sometimes it causes paranoia. You might have seen in the news how people using Flakka run through the streets naked, thinking that demons are chasing after them. Now, while this may seem like a night of adventure to someone with a bizarre or twisted sense of fun, Flakka can overheat the body, causing kidney failure and death if not treated immediately. When combined with the drug's stimulating effects, it can also cause heart problems. If you think that you've heard all the bad side effects of this drug, you are very wrong. This drug also messes up your mental health, affecting the part of your brain that regulates your mood, most often causing depression and anxiety. Some people who've used this drug find themselves dealing with these mental problems even after they've already cut Flakka out of their lives for good. So unless you want to turn into an aggressive, overheated, and depressed zombie, it's best to keep yourself away from Flakka. PCP. It might sound like a good idea to cut yourself off from reality and go on a somewhat relaxing trip, but if you plan to use a drug like PCP to go on a mental vacation, it's better to book that plane ticket to Hawaii itself. PCP is known as a dissociative drug, which means that it disconnects your mind from the world. This is why you're going to hallucinate and become quite delusional under the effects of this drug. A minute into a PCP trip, you're probably on the roof, ready to jump because you think you're Superman, or you'd probably take a quick trip to the zoo, thinking you're strong enough to fight a gorilla. PCP makes you think that you can do certain things even if you can't. You lose touch with reality, making you do something dangerous and risky. In the end, you're just gonna get hurt or injure people around you. If that's not enough reason to avoid this, it can cause high blood pressure, rapid heart rate, or seizures. Plus, it can dull your pain, making you believe that you're invincible to pain. So unless you don't want to end up in a hospital with broken limbs after a night of taking on the world with PCP, just stick to watching movies instead. Mescaline, peyote. Forget virtual reality because mescaline is there to transport you into another world. The problem is that it's not always a fun ride. Found in different plants, such as the peyote cactus, mescaline is a natural psychedelic that can cause you to hallucinate, meaning it will alter the way you see reality. It can make things look more colorful and can also alter your sense of time. You might think that there's nothing too dangerous about going on a mescaline ride every now and then, but what makes this stuff so risky is that its effects are intense. The euphoric feeling you get at the start can quickly turn into a scary episode of paranoia, especially if you start hallucinating scary stuff. The trip can last up to half a day. Imagine getting chased by hallucinated demons for 12 full hours. That beats any cardio. This drug also increases your heart rate, potentially causing a heart attack. But probably the worst part about mescaline is that it can cause something called hallucinogen persisting perception disorder. This happens when you continue experiencing hallucinations long after the drug has worn off. It's like this drug transports you into a virtual world for good. This virtual world is fun until you can't tell the difference between reality and a hallucination, causing you to do some dangerous stuff, like hurting actual people you thought were hallucinations. Carfentanil. Carfentanil is essentially the final boss of the opioid world because it's around 10,000 times stronger than morphine. You heard that right, it's a lot stronger than any other opioid on the planet, and that's because it was made to sedate large animals. It's basically the tranquilizer for elephants. But some wild guys became too overconfident in saying, "Yeah, I think I can handle that stuff." People started taking carfentanil, even though it was never intended for human use, because you can overdose on it in the tiniest amounts. You might think that just a few micrograms of this drug won't hurt you. We're talking about like a few grains of salt, but that's already more than enough for an overdose. This can stop your breathing and force your system to shut down. Anyone handling carfentanil should also be careful with this stuff because just touching or inhaling it can already put you down permanently. Accidental overdoses among police officers and paramedics are common when it comes to this drug. In short, being anywhere near carfentanil is never a good idea. Then again, it's probably safe to use if you're as heavy as a whale, but you're not. Instead of doing drugs, you can join our Discord. It's just as addictive, but minus the fatal side effects. GHB. Some party people think you can't have fun without a few chemicals in your system. That's why seeing someone offering you GHB at a party won't be rare. GHB is a depressant drug that slows down your brain and gives you a relaxed feeling. Its reputation for giving people that euphoric feeling while they're dancing the night away made this drug popular. But if you think that this could be a fun way to spend the weekend, you should know that GHB is dangerous. There is a very thin line between the getting high dose and the one that can send you to the hospital. This drug is often mixed with liquids, making it hard to estimate how much you need to get that party fever high. Just an extra pinch of GHB is already enough to overdose you. The effects also come quickly, usually somewhere between 15 to 30 minutes. If you end up overdosing on GHB, you're likely going to experience nausea, vomiting, and breathing problems. You may also experience increased agitation and confusion. That is, of course, if the drug doesn't knock you out cold in the middle of the dance floor. Oxycodone. Oxycodone took the song "Take My Breath Away" quite literally, making it one of the most dangerous drugs out there. As an opioid, it is supposed to be useful for managing severe pain and relaxing your breathing, especially if you're suffering from so much pain that you can't rest. However, it's become a common recreational drug for bored people, even if they're not suffering from any kind of pain. If you're one of the adventurous people that try this drug, it will depress your respiratory system, meaning it slows down your breathing. This can be useful if you're in the middle of a panic attack, but if you overuse this stuff, it will stop your breathing. This is the major cause of death for oxycodone overdose. You might be saying, well, I'll just manage my doses to get that relaxing feeling without overdosing. That makes sense, but you should also know that it activates your brain's reward system, which makes it highly addictive. Once your body has developed a tolerance to it, there's going to be a high risk of overdosing. So while it sounds like a good idea to kick back and relax by popping an oxycodone pill during a lazy weekend, you may want to rethink that decision, unless you want to end up breathless. Salvia. Watch out, cannabis, because there's a new psychedelic plant steadily rising through the ranks of organic substances. We're talking about the salvia plant, which may look like it's a great addition to your mom's backyard garden. However, it can be considered dangerous due to its effects. Salvia is incredibly unpredictable because its effects can vary from one person to another. You may hallucinate now after ingesting a few salvia leaves, but you're probably going to experience different effects tomorrow. Some of those effects include an altered sense of reality and disorientation. It can also lead to panic and confusion, especially if you get a bad trip. That means you can't tell what you'll get because different people react uniquely to salvia. It's like a game of Russian roulette, where one choice can potentially harm you. Salvia is generally considered non-toxic and non-fatal, and that means that there are hardly any deaths associated with the use of this organic substance, but its psychological effects are so intense that they can alter your behavior, causing you to become a danger to yourself and the people around you. You might lose awareness of your environment and suddenly drive yourself down a cliff. It's a plant that won't kill you directly, but because you'll never know how your body will react to it, you're essentially flirting with death. This is why salvia is regulated in some places. Scopolamine. Drugs aren't only dangerous when you use them, but also when someone uses them on you. Take, for instance, scopolamine, which is widely regarded as a favorite among criminals. When used medicinally, it can be used for treating depression, asthma attacks, and spasms. But there's also a good reason why scopolamine is called the devil's breath. It has a sinister side that can get you saying, "What the heck just happened?" You see, this drug can cause zombification, which is a state where you can't control your thoughts and actions. Criminals use high doses of the drug and blow it into people's faces or hide it in business cards. It can also be slipped into a drink. As soon as you inhale or drink the powdered scopolamine, it hijacks your brain and makes you compliant. So if someone blows powder into your face, don't ask why you suddenly gave them your wallet without question. This is why the devil's breath is commonly used for robbery, assaults, and waking up without your wallet is bad enough, but waking up married to a stranger in Vegas is a whole other level. If you become a victim of a scopolamine attack, you probably won't even remember what happened. Meanwhile, higher doses can cause hallucinations or even a heart attack. You can't even cure this stuff once it enters your system. The only thing doctors can do is treat the symptoms. So if you're at a bar, just make sure you keep an eye on your drink, because you don't want anyone flavoring it with a bit of scopolamine. Cannabis. Whether you prefer calling it weed, Mary Jane, or hash, Cannabis is everyone's favorite green leafy plant. Snoop Dogg swears by it and has done a lot of side quests in life with his trusty blunt by his side, but while it may be one of the most popular drugs in the world, it's stirred up a lot of debate. You've probably heard people supporting weed saying, "But weed helps me relax and deal with my anxiety. It's perfectly fine because it's all organic." While it may be true that weed can help issues like anxiety, body pain, and insomnia, there are a ton of problems associated with it. That stuff in marijuana that gets you high is THC, short for tetrahydrocannabinol. The secret ingredient gives you that euphoric buzz while also messing with your brain's juices. The addictive part comes in when your body keeps looking for that high and feels attached to weed. You're like a child who doesn't want to go to bed without your blanket, which is weed. You're going to feel like you can't live without this stuff because you rely on it so much for energy, relaxation, and inspiration, turning you into an addict. Of course, we know that some people argue that getting a little high off weed is better than getting lung cancer from tobacco or killing 10 people on the freeway after drunk driving. Opium. Back in the day, opium was like the OG pain reliever. People have been using it for ages to ease their aches and pains. Headache? Opium. Bellyache? Opium. Got stabbed? Opium. When you pop some opium, it's like sending a signal to your brain saying, "Hey pain, take a back seat." That's because it contains this chemical called morphine, which basically blocks those pain signals from getting through. It's like setting up a detour on the highway to your brain, giving you a break from the hurt. But opium isn't entirely safe, even though it's all natural, since it's made using a plant called poppies. In the start, it makes you feel relaxed and floaty, but over time, you start relying on it to stay happy and mellow. Once you're hooked, your body craves more. And it's not just your brain that gets messed up. Opium can mess with your stomach too, leaving you feeling sluggish and out of it. No wonder it's not the go-to for pain relief anymore. There are safer options that won't leave you feeling like you've been hit by a truck. Inhalants. One of the easiest to get drugs out there is inhalants. You don't have to go to the pharmacy or your local drug guy. Instead, you can find these things practically anywhere. We're talking about everyday stuff like glue, gasoline, markers, and paint thinners, just sitting in the local grocery. The deal with inhalants is that instead of swallowing a pill or lighting up a blunt, you sniff these things. When you do, the chemicals in them mix with your brain and give you a kind of woozy, feel-good sensation. It's like a subtle high. You've probably felt this before when you opened a fresh marker and got a sniff. But the thing is that while using inhalants might make you feel good temporarily, they can mess with your body. Your coordination, your thinking, and even your heart can be affected. Short-term use might not seem too bad, but if you keep doing it, it can damage your brain and other organs. After all, these things are often made with some pretty toxic chemicals. Everyone reacts differently to these substances. What might feel harmless to one person could land another in the hospital after a few sniffs. Nicotine. If you've ever wondered why kicking the smoking habit is so tough, nicotine's the culprit. It's a dangerous and sneaky substance found in tobacco products like cigarettes, chewables, and vapes that hooks you in. You can thank nicotine for making tobacco so addictive. When you light up a cig, it's like nicotine's whispering to your brain, "Hey, let's do that again." Once nicotine enters your system, it goes straight for your brain, triggering a rush of dopamine. Dopamine is a feel-good chemical that's all about pleasure and rewards. In short, it helps take the edge off, allowing you to feel relaxed and at ease. So smoking feels good because nicotine's basically telling your brain, "Yeah, this is awesome." But don't be fooled because there's a dark side to nicotine. The happy feeling you get from nicotine doesn't last long, but your brain's going to be demanding more of it, forcing you to burn through an entire pack of cigarettes in a day. But while smoking may feel good, it's going to lead to lung cancer or getting your limbs cut off. Heroin. Neurotransmitters are like little messengers in your brain. They're the ones who tell your body, "Hey, time to feel happy," or "Ouch, that hurts." But then along comes heroin, messing with these messengers' jobs. When you take heroin, it finds its way to your brain and latches onto the neurotransmitters that deal with happiness and pain relief. It basically tells them to pump out more of those feel-good chemicals like dopamine. So suddenly your brain is high off of pleasure and you forget all about the pain. The pleasure, however, comes with its own side effects, including hormonal and heart problems. But the worst part is that heroin doesn't know when to leave. It sticks around and starts whispering to your body that it can't feel good without it. So you become reliant on it to feel happy or pain-free. That's when you get addicted to it. Cocaine. You know, without dropping any names, many big-shot Hollywood celebrities have likely dabbled in a bit of nose candy. Let's say you've hit the jackpot in life. There's no more dull 9 to 5 grind for you. You're living the glamorous life of a bona fide movie star. But you find yourself at one of the parties thrown by an A-list celebrity. So there you are, offered a taste of the white stuff, and you soon realize that it packs a punch. Cocaine kicks your stimulation into the next gear by messing with your brain's dopamine recycling system. Now, dopamine isn't just a simple mood-boosting chemical, it's like your brain's personal cheerleader, shouting, "Let's get stuff done." But when you indulge in cocaine, that dopamine sticks around longer, keeping you pumped and buzzing. But the catch is that the high is fleeting. After 15 to 30 minutes, you feel like a deflated balloon, sluggish, moody, and craving more white powder. Cocaine also turns you into an aggressive, ticking time bomb full of anger and paranoia. The worst is that it puts your heart into overdrive and can cause heart attacks. So while cocaine might sound like a thrill ride to the wild side, most of the time it ends your life in a very sad way. Ecstasy, MDMA. The stuff they call Molly is also known as MDMA or ecstasy. People love using it at parties because it gives you this crazy boost of confidence and makes everything feel amazing. It's like stepping into a new world of energy and pleasure. So when you take MDMA, it messes with your brain chemicals, especially serotonin, which controls your mood. When you pop an ecstasy pill, your brain gets flooded with serotonin, and suddenly you're feeling all happy and even kinda lovey-dovey in a sexual way. That's why ecstasy is such a hit at parties. It's like a ticket to feeling energetic, happy, and, as cherry on the top, a little horny. If you want to impress that hottie on the dance floor, ecstasy might just be your wingman. But like any good thing, there are risks. MDMA pushes your body to its limit, making you thirsty and overheated. Sometimes your heart can start racing too fast, leading to seizures or even a heart attack. Using ecstasy too often can mess with your brain's natural serotonin production. That means once the high wears off, you might crash hard into a bout of depression. LSD. LSD was like the poster child for the whole hippie movement. It's because it's a real trip that can take imagination to a different plane of existence. When you pop one in your mouth, your senses go on vacation, leaving you to navigate a world of different colors and abstract shapes you've never heard of before. What LSD does is that it changes how your serotonin system reacts, forcing your body to alter the way it sees and hears things. You're gonna start hallucinating, seeing things that aren't there, while also changing how you perceive time. An entire hour may feel like an eternity when you're under LSD's spell. Some people love the LSD experience, thinking it's some kind of spiritual awakening. Others just like the way it makes the world look different. But the thing is that an LSD trip can get wild. What's a mind-bending adventure for one person could become a nightmare for another. Take too much, and you might question what's real and what's not. So while LSD can open up a whole new world, it's not for the faint of heart. Ketamine. Ketamine was mainly used for knocking people out cold during surgeries, but there was a twist with this drug. It turned out to be pretty unique compared to other drugs, especially when it comes to the experience it gives to recreational users. Ketamine is what you'd call a dissociative drug. That means it's like stepping outside of yourself and seeing the world from a different angle. It's like you're watching your own life in a movie. Ketamine users call this state the K-hole, and it's similar to going on a wild ride without leaving your bed. But things get interesting because ketamine comes with its fair share of risks. Just like any other drug, if you're chasing that K-hole, it can mess with your perception of reality big time. It's like blurring the line between what's real and what's just a ketamine-induced trip. Magic mushrooms. Psilocybin is like a roller coaster for your brain, taking you on this trippy journey that some folks might describe as spiritual or mind-blowing. In those magic mushrooms, there's this chemical called psilocin. It latches onto specific brain cells that handle your mood, perception, and thinking. Once it hooks onto those cells, it starts messing with how your brain processes everything. Suddenly, your brain is throwing a party and inviting all sorts of emotions, sights, and sounds to the weirdest event ever. People munch on these shrooms to change their mood and see the world differently. Sometimes it even feels like you're one with everything around you. No wonder hippies and those seeking a spiritual kick love these magic mushrooms. But the fact is that shrooms can be seriously risky. They change your sense of reality, and a bad trip can send you spiraling into anxiety and paranoia. Even the tiniest thing, like a cat's meow, might feel like a roaring lion coming to get you if you're on a bad shroom trip. Ayahuasca. With a name that makes it sound like it's a Harry Potter spell, Ayahuasca is your all-natural psychedelic brew that's made for spiritual healing, but has made a name for itself as a recreational drug. Ayahuasca is made by brewing specific vines from the Amazon rainforest and has been used in South America for a long time. But in other countries, it's used for a lazy Saturday night psychedelic trip. This brew contains DMT, which is a powerful psychedelic compound that hijacks your brain and alters your decision-making and self-awareness. That explains why an ayahuasca trip makes you see vibrant colors and otherworldly beings that don't exist. The trip is intense, hitting you like a Mike Tyson punch, but it's like you're in a deep therapy session that makes you one with the universe. While ayahuasca can give you a fantastic ride on the psychedelic train, it can attack the deepest parts of your mind. This is why you might see visions of your deepest fears and unresolved issues while on an ayahuasca trip. While some people claim that ayahuasca can help them overcome trauma and fears, it's not the best experience for everyone, especially the ones who can get easily freaked out by spooky visions. Alcoholism. Honestly, it's not too bad if you enjoy a shot of whiskey or two now and then, because life would be boring without a bit of alcohol in your system, but there's always something as too much, especially when it comes to alcohol. Alcoholism, or alcohol use disorder, is when drinking becomes a regular and uncontrollable routine. Instead of 8 glasses of water daily, you habitually drink 8 bottles of Bud Light regularly. This works because a lot of people like how alcohol can be effective at numbing their systems, making them feel a bit loose while forgetting their problems. You probably spend Fridays drinking with a few friends because it's a relaxing way of ending a tough week. It's basically a reward for your body. Alcohol, however, eventually hijacks your body's reward system, making you crave that relaxation all the time. That's why some people like drinking so much, as if their bodies are probably already bleeding alcohol. Alcoholism can lead to severe consequences, like liver damage and kidney failure. On top of that, being drunk all the time can lead you to do some crazy stuff, including getting a bit too violent and driving through the freeway like a madman. So if you have an Alcoholics Anonymous group in your area, you better get there quickly to get booze off your system. Amphetamine use disorder. If you're stressed or tired, amphetamines are there for the rescue. This drug is a stimulant. This means that it can boost energy levels while improving your mood. It also is used for treating ADHD and other similar conditions. You can find it in a lot of different forms, including Adderall, a prescription drug, and the infamously illegal crystal meth. When you use amphetamines, your body's going to feel some happy juices coursing through your veins, making you feel like you're the happiest guy on the planet. But as you use more of this stuff, your body will build up a tolerance, meaning it needs more to achieve the same effects. You'd be forcing yourself to use more of it, leading you to become more dependent. You're basically useless when you're at your normal state, and that's why your body will push you into taking more amphetamine to get that happy and energetic feeling again. Amphetamine use disorder can lead to anxiety, hallucinations, and paranoia. Of course, no one likes having a nasty smile because of meth mouth, which is when your gums start to go bad and your teeth fall out. It can also cause heart problems and rapid unhealthy weight loss. Forget dieting and going to the gym, because amphetamine addiction is there to turn you into skin and bones. Psilocybin use disorder. Mushrooms on your pizza may sound nice, unless we're talking about psilocybin, otherwise known as magic mushrooms, or simply shrooms. Shrooms aren't as harmless as any other fungus out there because this stuff can cause hallucinations and perception changes. They can distort the way you see reality. It's not physically addictive, meaning your body won't be demanding more, but because some hippies love the trippy effects they get from shrooms, it can lead to psychological dependence. That's when this becomes a disorder. When you depend on this substance, your state of mind will be altered. It's like you're on a psychological trip 24/7. You'll start neglecting work, school, and relationships when you're always chilling at home and munching on shrooms all day. Being dependent on shrooms can also open you up to risky behaviors, including driving while on a bad trip. Moreover, if you can't get your fix on this substance, you're likely to experience mood swings. Sedative use disorder. Sometimes life can get too rough on you, especially when you have deadlines to meet in school or at work. So if you want to unwind, a sedative, like a sleeping pill or even anti-anxiety medication, can do the trick. Using sedatives isn't bad as long as you only do so occasionally or as prescribed, but when you start taking them like your daily multivitamins, that's when the problems will start to show up, causing sedative use disorder. This substance abuse disorder kicks in when you start needing more sedatives to chill out, primarily if you use them regularly. But you can also develop this disorder if you use your sedatives together with alcohol. What happens here is that your body and brain will start craving the drug, especially if you can't just feel relaxed taking the usual dosage anymore. The body won't feel rested or relaxed unless you use sedatives, and this craving can lead to a cycle that's tough to break. Even when you try to cut back on your use, your body's going to go through withdrawal symptoms like anxiety or even seizures. Hallucinogen use disorder. If you're a bit on the adventurous ride, wanting to feel a different kind of fun, then you're likely to use hallucinogens like LSD or magic mushrooms. Hallucinogens can give you a unique thrill ride that's crazy yet exciting for many people because they affect how the brain and the senses perceive things. Essentially, your mind takes a trip and makes you hear, see, and feel things that aren't real. Sometimes this can be a one-time or occasional thing, especially if you're just in it for the experiment. But when it turns into a pattern, it can get out of hand, leading to hallucinogen use disorder. It's like you're just getting a slice of dessert, but you end up eating the entire cake. That's how hallucinogen use disorder starts. You just wanted to try, but ended up loving the experience so much that you just want to experience it regularly because the real world has become too boring. One of the biggest problems with this disorder is that it tends to blur the lines between what's real and what's not. Some people who are too deep into the effects of hallucinogens may also experience paranoia and anxiety problems, although these side effects aren't that common. Chain smoking. Probably the most common way of taking the edge off when you're stressed or having a big problem is to take a break and light up a cigarette. Around 24% of working adults smoke, which means that it is one of the most widely used substances in the world. Cigarette smoking has never been good for your body, although there are instances when smoking a stick or two from time to time can help you relax. However, the problem arises when smoking becomes an addiction. This habit is known as chain smoking. If you're a chain smoker, you're already lighting up a stick before you even burn through the last one. This becomes an uncontrollable and unstoppable habit that turns you into a human chimney and a walking lung cancer magnet. But chain smoking doesn't happen overnight. It's usually something habitual, where the action becomes automatic, especially if you've become too dependent on nicotine. That's because nicotine can help improve your mood and makes you dependent on it for that feel-good energy. The biggest problem in chain smoking is that it's got serious health implications. It increases the likelihood of breathing problems, cancers, and heart disease. There's no doubt that quitting this habit is incredibly difficult, as it can lead to withdrawals. But there are medications, or better alternatives, like nicotine patches that can eventually help you overcome this disorder. Steroid use disorder. Nothing screams manliness like muscles on top of muscles, and muscles on your eyeballs, and being able to overpower opponents in the boxing ring or on the basketball court. You've got steroids to thank for this added beefiness in your physical performance. Depending on how you use them, steroids can be helpful. A lot of bodybuilders use these drugs to look like walking blocks of marble. But when you use steroids in a way that's not necessary or more than prescribed, that's when steroid use disorder comes in. This is essentially a pattern where a person becomes so obsessed with becoming the next Incredible Hulk that they keep on taking steroids without thinking about how they would impact their health. Steroids, even when used in a controlled environment, can already mess with your hormones and cause mood swings and aggression. That's why you might have episodes of roid rage, which is when you become a bit too aggressive with all that testosterone coursing through your veins. These effects are worse if you're basically addicted to steroids. Benzodiazepine use disorder. If you've ever had an episode in your life where you keep counting sheep but just can't fall asleep, you are likely familiar with the effects of benzodiazepines. These drugs include Xanax or Valium, which are great at treating anxiety disorders. But if you take your benzodiazepines like they were Tic Tacs, that's when things can get messy. The more of this stuff you use, the more your body will need to get knocked out. The more dependent you are, the more likely you'll suffer from benzodiazepine disorder. If you're suffering from this disorder, it's like you're in slumberland the entire time, unable to concentrate on your task. That's because benzodiazepine relaxes and slows your brain down to make it easier for you to sleep. But once this effect wears off, you become irritable or anxious. The only way for you to feel relaxed and at ease is to pop one of these drugs. You can still use benzodiazepines if you're suffering from this disorder, just tone the dosage down until your body gets back to normal. We on this channel are suffering from subscriber dependency, which is the need for more subscribers. If you want to help us get over this addiction, you can join our Discord. Caffeine dependency. Whether you're a stressed out college student or a zombified corporate slave, that morning cup of joe is your sidekick. The caffeine in your coffee gives you that extra pep in your step to make you feel you can take on the world after a sip. Caffeine is basically the fuel in your tank when you're too tired to start your day or think about going to the gym. It works by blocking the sleepy signals in your brain, making it the ideal substance to use when you're in the middle of finals week or that dreaded work presentation. Your brain, however, starts expecting caffeine to rescue you every time you feel sleepy. Before you know it, you've already downed 4 cups the entire day to keep your mind alive. This is when caffeine dependency starts. No one likes to admit they're addicted to caffeine. They love it when their Red Bull gives them wings, but if you're too dependent on caffeine, you can't do anything right unless you have a shot of energy drink. You're also grumpy with a headache until caffeine gets into your system. Nitrous oxide use disorder. If you've ever been to the dentist and found yourself getting knocked into a blissful state, that's because they used nitrous oxide on you. Commonly known as laughing gas, this substance is a dentist's secret weapon to keep you from murdering them while they pull your teeth out. But the thing about nitrous oxide is that it's quite common and can be found in whipped cream canisters and other similar items. Because of this, people who chase that euphoric sensation inhale hefty doses of this stuff. In a matter of minutes, you'll be high on laughing gas, giggling the entire day while marathoning cat videos. When you get addicted to this stuff, you'll be too busy laughing to know that nitrous oxide is already playing a trick on your body. It replaces the oxygen in your lungs, causing you to go dizzy, and when your body is severely lacking oxygen, you can say goodbye to some of your organs. Suddenly, a session of laughs turns into a tragic drama. It might sound fun at first, but you don't want to end up in an emergency room because of laughing gas. So if you start loving that high you get every time you visit your dentist, just remember that nitrous oxide use disorder is no laughing matter. Bath salts use disorder. Don't let the innocent name fool you, because bath salts aren't for soaking away your troubles in the tub. Instead, these substances are synthetic drugs that can be anything but relaxing. The only reason why they have such a deceptive name is that they look like Epsom salts, but the similarities end there. Instead of sprinkling these salts into your bath, you snort or smoke them to chase that euphoric high that's similar to what cocaine gives you. It sounds like a good party, but it comes with a hefty price. That burst of energy you get will quickly warp your sense of reality. You're hooked on it pretty soon because you love the salty buzz you get from these nasty crystals. But when you're deep into bath salt use territory, you can become a grumpy and agitated mess if you don't get that high. At the same time, if you keep on going on a trip with bath salts, you can get paranoid. It's basically a one-way ticket to Crazy Town, where you get all sorts of hallucinations. The worst part is the withdrawal, because it's like a hangover straight from the pits of hell. It's going to get you depressed and anxious. That's why dealing with someone with bath salt use disorder can feel like you're diffusing a ticking time bomb of craziness and emotions. Polysubstance use disorder. Having polysubstance use disorder, or PUD, is what can happen when there's an entire party of different substances mixing and dancing together in your system. It's like your body is a huge dance floor, inviting alcohol, nicotine, weed, ecstasy, and a lot of different substances to the party. While things start out fun initially, it quickly becomes chaotic. As soon as the different substances start bumping each other on this dance floor, none of them play nice anymore. They can start to give you different kinds of effects, such as drunkenness mixed together with the sexiness of ecstasy and the trippy high of marijuana. Sometimes the mixed effect is great, but in most cases, it's incredibly unpredictable and dangerous. But if you're suffering from PUD, getting drunk or high just won't be enough for you to get the feeling that you want. There has to be something else buzzing in your mind and body. But juggling unpredictable effects can deliver different highs and lows. Sometimes it's just a fun vibe. However, it can also lead your system to shut down, especially if your system can't handle the chaos. If you're suffering from this disorder, it's best to never rush to the end of the party. Just steadily take a few guests out the door until the fun becomes more manageable. Barbiturate use disorder. Think of barbiturates as the star of the drug world during the 1900s, when your great-grandpa and everyone around that time took it to get some rest after working all day. Let's say that Barbie the barbiturate is your body's guest of honor during a slumber party. But even after you fall asleep, Barbie doesn't just leave your body. Instead, it stays there and tells your body to take more of it. That's how you develop barbiturate use disorder. You're essentially hooked on the seductive feeling of relaxation that this drug gives you. As soon as you use more of this drug, you just want to stay home, doing nothing but laze around and nap. You end up forgetting everything you need to do in life, including bathing or getting a proper meal. The addictive effects of barbiturates are exactly why this drug has been left behind in the 20th century. It's no longer popular today because doctors noticed something odd and said, well, it seems like people who use barbiturates turn into big couch potatoes. Maybe let's stop prescribing this stuff. Luckily, there are medical treatments that can help you kick Barbie out of your system and say goodbye to it for good.